Besima Abwa World on the Fescadus Adwamla Amen. Besima Abwa World on the Fescadus Adwamla Amen. Besima Abwa World on the Fescadus Adwamla Amen. Yes, good morning and hope everyone's doing good. It's a long reading today, so I'm going to get straight in with it. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Give thanks. Now, Israel, listen to the statutes and to the ordinances which I teach you, to do them, that you may live in and go in and possess the land which Yahweh, the God of your fathers, gives you. You shall not add to the word which I command you, neither shall you take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your God, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what Yahweh has done before because of Baal-Peor, for Yahweh your God has destroyed all the men who followed Baal-Peor from among you. But you who were faithful to Yahweh, your God, and all alive today, behold, I have taught you statutes and ordinances, even as Yahweh my God commanded me, that you shall do so in the middle of the land where you go in and possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to them as Yahweh? Our God is whenever we call on them. What great nation is there that has statutes and ordinances so righteous as all this law which I set before you today? Only be careful and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes saw, and lest they depart from your heart all these days of your life, but make them known to your children and to your children's children, the day that you stood before Yahweh your God in Horeb, when Yahweh said to me, assemble the people to me, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children. You came near and stood up the mountain. The mountain burned with fire to the heart of the sky, with darkness, cloud, and thick darkness. Yahweh spoke to you out of the middle of the fire. You heard the voice of the words, but you saw no form. You only heard a voice. He declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even the 10 commandments. He wrote them on 2 stone tablets. Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and ordinances that you might do in the land where you go over to possess it. Be very careful, for you saw no kind of form on that day that Yahweh spoke to you in Horeb out of the middle of the fire, lest you corrupt yourself and make yourself the carved image in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is on the earth, the likeness of winged birds that flies in the sky, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water or under the earth. And lest you lift up your eyes to the sky, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the army of the sky, you are drawn away and worship them and serve them, which Yahweh your God has allotted to all the peoples under the whole sky. But Yahweh has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be him a people of inheritance as it is today. Furthermore, Yahweh was angry with me for your sakes, and swore that I should not go over the Jordan, and that I should not go into the good land which Yahweh your God gives you for an inheritance, but I must die in this land. I must not go over the Jordan, but you shall go over and possess the good land. Be careful, lest you forget the covenant of Yahweh your God, which he made with you, and make yourselves a carved image in the form of anything which Yahweh your God has forbidden you. For Yahweh your God is a devouring fire, a jealous God. When your father, children, and children's children, and you have long been in the land, and then corrupt yourselves, and make carved image in the form of anything, to do that which is evil to Yahweh your God's sight, to provoke him to anger. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you shall soon utterly perish from off the land which you go over the Jordan to possess it. You will not prolong your days on it. You will utterly be destroyed. Yahweh your God will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where Yahweh will lead you away. There you will serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But from there you shall seek Yahweh your God, and you shall find him where you search after him with all your heart, with all your soul. When you are in oppression, and all these things have come on you, in the latter days you shall return to Yahweh your God and listen to his voice. For Yahweh your God is a merciful God. He shall not fail you nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers which he swore to them. For ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man on earth, and from the one end of the sky to the other, whether there has been anything as great as this thing, or has been heard like it. Did a people even hear the voice of God speaking out in the middle of the fire, as you have heard, and live? Or has God tried to go and take a nation for himself from amongst another nation, by trials, by signs, by wonders, by war, by a mighty hand, by an outstretched arm, and by great terrors, according to all that Yahweh your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? It was shown to you, so that you might know that Yahweh is God. There is no one else besides him. Out of heaven he made you to hear his voice, that he might instruct you. On earth he made you to see the great fire, that you have heard his words out in the middle of the fire. Because he loved your fathers, therefore he chose their offspring after them, and brought you out with his presence, with the great power out of Egypt, to drive out nations from before the greater and the mightier than you, to bring you in, to give you in their land of inheritance, as it is today. Know therefore, and take it to heart, that Yahweh himself is God in heaven above, and on the earth beneath. There is no one else. You shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command to you today, that I may well go with you, and with your children after you, that you may prolong your days in the land which Yahweh your God gives you for all the time. Then Moses set apart 3 cities beyond the Jordan towards the sunrise, that the manslayer might flee there, who kills the neighbour unintentionally, and didn't hate him in time past, and that fleeting to one of the cities might live. Bezer in the wilderness, in the plain country, for the Reubenites, for the Ramoth, to the Gilead, for the Gadites, to the Golan, to the Bashan, for the Manassites. This is the law which Moses has set before the children of Israel. These are the testimonies, and the statutes, and the ordinances which Moses spoke to the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt, beyond the Jordan in the valley opposite Beth-Par, and the land of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, whom Moses and the children of Israel struck when they came out of Egypt. They took possession of the land of the Og king in Bashan, the 2 kings of the Amorites, who were before and beyond the Jordan towards the sunrise, from Arah, which is on the edge of the valley of Ammon, even to Mount Sion, also called Hermon, and all the Abarah beyond the Jordan eastward, even to the sea of Arabah, under the slopes of Pisgah. For these few words I give thanks, blessings, and love. So it says here, warning, do not make any graven images, any idols, any carved representations of man or woman, or of any animal, and start to worship those instead of the one true God. And it's an interesting one, particularly within Ethiopian Orthodox Church, because Ethiopian Orthodox often gets accused of graving images, and the Orthodox churches in general, not just Ethiopian Orthodox, because they do have lots of icons, they call them, of Jesus and the other saints, of Mary, and they have those very prominently on the altar. And the defense from the priests is that they're not graven images, they are not worshipped, but they're just something to focus the mind and and put that attention towards. The other controversial thing within Ethiopian Orthodox particularly is the use of Western icons, blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus, white skin, etc., which flies in the face of Ethiopian artistic tradition, which has a very strong history of the use of icons with Jesus, with brown skin, black hair, brown eyes, and religious biblical imagery that looks like the worshippers. So it is a very contentious issue. Why are they using European icons when you actually have your rich Ethiopian icons itself? And actually, it's a defense that I struggle with myself. I have those same critiques, to be honest, of the church. It does disappoint me every time I go into the church and see the European icons. These are, as a Rasta, the use of the European icons is something that we run out and criticised and dashed out from day one. That was like foundational, that Jesus, all the biblical characters, they look like us. Why aren't we represented them in our own image? And we drew on those actual Ethiopian artworks of religious imagery to back up that claim. So then when you then go into an Ethiopian Orthodox Church and see the use of the white icons, it is quite heartbreaking. And I actually think it's a huge own goal by the leaders of Ethiopian Orthodox to be doing that, because I think they would get much more the African diaspora if they used the African Ethiopian icons and not the European icons. Make no apology for this critique. I think it's a really disappointing, short-sighted own goal. I know there's lots of different reasonings for it. Ethiopia themselves didn't go through transatlantic enslavement, so they have a very different relationship to that discourse of the representation of Africans, particularly within a biblical context, than we do in the diaspora. African Caribbeans that have that history and that heritage and that dialogue and those sets of tensions. We know that how the white European icon of Jesus was used to oppress us during slavery, and used to justify colonialism, used to justify continual racism, and it goes on and on and on. Where the Ethiopian community haven't had that. They've lived very securely in an independent Ethiopia. And they haven't had that racist dynamic trying to tell you you're anything lesser than yourselves. So they have a concept of Jesus and the biblical characters which transcends race, whereas in the diaspora we're very sensitive to race. So I get it, but there are certain churches that are using more black skin and African-centric icons, and they're doing very well with the diaspora, particularly in America, because they're going into the church and then seeing themselves represented in the religious iconography. But it's a long. I do see it as a bit of a battle. It's a long battle. I'm not going into the church and kicking up and taking up the. That's just not my style. But I think there is a conversation to be had. I'm not the only one who has this reasoning. And it's, for me, there's a two-level dialogue going on. While I'm in the church, I'm there to give glory to God. Seeing the white icons there, I try not to focus on them. But that's a different motivation for me being in the church. They're not going to stop me going in the church in and of itself, because my relationship with God is a very personal relationship. I think it's an interesting one. It's a very controversial one. There might be some kickback against what I'm saying, but I have to speak truth. But as I say, there are certain Ethiopian Orthodox churches that do use much more African-centric and Ethiopian-centric icons. I pray that's a practice that's going to spread just across the world, because I think it really does need to happen. I will leave it there. I didn't know I was going to talk about this today, laying my heart on the line with some critique there for the church, but iron sharpens iron, and I have to stand in that truth. So glory to God each and every time. Blessings and love. Have a blessed day, and God willing, be back more tomorrow.